Thank you for tuning into White Centipede Noise Podcast. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is made possible by viewer and listener support. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider supporting it at patreon.com/White Centipede Noise. White Centipede Noise is a label and mail order based in Germany, releasing top quality noise on tape, CD, and vinyl. White Centipede Noise is also the premier EU-based distributor of international noise. Visit whitecentipedenoise.com to see available label releases and weekly distro updates. Hello and welcome to the White Centipede Noise Podcast. My name is Oscar Brummel, and today I'm joined by three individuals who make up what I like to think of as the three musketeers of harsh noise, of midwestern harsh noise. Please welcome Stefan Aune, Brad Griggs, and Luke Tandy. I invited them here because they're all on their own solo right, really awesome, great artists that I hope to be able to have as guests here on their own sometime soon, but I specifically want to talk about their work together in their various collaboration projects today, specifically Heat Signature, which is Brad and Luke, and Action Discipline, which is Brad and Stefan. So, welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thanks for having
us.
Morning.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys here. Great to see you guys all. I'm going to start off just kind of skipping over some of the basic history for most of you, because I think we know Stefan does KJOSTAD, does Breaking the Will. Luke does Being. We're going to get into that too a little bit. But Brad, can you tell me, you're a bit of a, you're pretty low key in, I would say, the noise scene. You're behind the scenes of a lot of really heavy projects, and your name rings bells, but at the same time, you're kind of maybe unknown to a lot of people who aren't familiar with your solo work, because you've put out so little, actually. Can you tell me a little about your background as a noise artist?
Yeah, sure. I started playing noise shows when I was 18 in Columbus, and just under my own name, and then just kind of kept playing them ever since. And I don't record a whole lot of solo stuff. I'm one of those people that's never really happy with what they do, and then so little of it gets released. But fortunately, I have a couple of very talented friends that I can kind of like latch on to and get my voice out there that way, I suppose.
You have released solo stuff, though. I mean, you have a track or 10-minute track or side, I can't remember if it's separate tracks, on one of Skeleton Dust's contemporary harsh noise double cassettes, which is excellent. And I think everyone who's heard it is like, this little taste is something that everyone's thirsty for more. And I've asked you for a release on White Centipede Noise. I imagine I'm not the only one who's asked you. Yeah.
Since like 2010, I think.
Yeah, exactly. What's the reason that you don't produce more solo?
Oh, yeah. Just like I said, I'm one of those people that could like tweak something forever. And just never really satisfied with what I put out. Like I actually recorded like 2 hours of stuff for you and then listened to it and was like, never mind. But I don't know. I think like for what it's worth, hard deadlines help me. So like Luke, when I put out or gave him that track for that contemporary harsh noise compilation, he was like, I need the track by this day. And I was like, all right.
And it probably took me like 6 months to actually put out the release too.
Yeah. I think it took you like 6 months to even listen to the thing that I sent, because I remember like several months went by and you're like, I'm really sorry, but I finally just listened to that, and you told me you liked it.
Maybe that's why you don't. Maybe that was a bad experience.
No, it was a good experience.
Dealing with asshole labels.
Skeleton dust is notoriously difficult to work with.
At least I'm slow. There's that for sure. Yeah, slower than I've ever been too.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot on your plate with the record shop right now. So you're tuning in right now, by the way, from your record shop, Skeleton Dust Records in Dayton, Ohio. Is that correct?
That's great. Yep.
How long has that been open now?
It's been just over 4 years. Yeah, it was like 4 years, like last week, as when we first opened. So.
Wow. Time flies, actually.
Yeah.
So, the two projects that we're kind of focusing on today, Action Discipline and Heat Signature. Can you guys tell me about the recording processes for both of those? How a release comes together?
I mean, I can talk a little bit about both because the weird thing is I'm grandfathered into the first Heat Signature release. Do this weird story. So at the time, I was living in upstate New York. No, I was living in Ann Arbor, Michigan. For some reason, I was driving cross country. I think from Minnesota to maybe New York. And so Luke had generously offered me to crash at his house in Dayton because Dayton's kind of right in the middle of the country. And so we made this plan, and then a lot of time went by. And I think, maybe I didn't check in before. So I was in the car getting close to Dayton. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm almost here. And Luke had forgotten I was coming, and he'd scheduled Heat Signature rehearsal with Brad. And it was the first Heat Signature rehearsal, correct?
I actually remember it a little bit differently. I think that you were driving cross country, like you said, and I think that you were going to stop at my apartment in Columbus to record Action Discipline. Really? But then, like, I got the dates mixed up, and you told me that you were like an hour out or something like that, and I was like, oh man, I'm in the car, like getting ready to go to the first like Heat Signature recording session, and I think you rerouted, but maybe I'm wrong, or maybe
it was a long time ago. Regardless, so I show up at Luke's house, and you guys are about to rehearse, so it's like, well, I'll just jump on the rehearsal.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
And so we recorded the three of us, and then we had this, I don't know, maybe an hour's worth of material, and there was a discussion over what to do with it. And those guys were like, well, let's just call it Heat Signature. So I mixed it up and released it on New Forces.
So you mixed it?
Yeah.
The first.
Well, I didn't mix it. I culled it down from the bigger chunk of recording that we had and did it on New Forces. So that's the first Heat Signature shape. And then, of course, since then, Heat Signature has gone off on its own tangent.
Did you have your own? Did you have your own gear when you showed up there, or did you?
Yeah, for some reason I had gear. I don't know if I played a show in Minnesota or why. I just like had a trunk full of pedals. So I just showed up in Luke's basement and plugged in, and we rehearsed, or we just recorded for a while. So yeah, I'm grandfathered into Heat Signature. Okay.
But now Heat Signature is pretty strictly Brad and Luke, and it has a, pretty distinct sound. I hear similarities between that and Action Discipline for sure, but they definitely have their own personality. So what Action Discipline now, what does that entail? Like a recording, what goes into a release, first of all, of Action Discipline?
I mean, Action Discipline's been, I don't know, dead or on hiatus for how many years, Brad?
Probably. I think the last thing that we did together was the Amplified Humans Fest.
Right. So when I lived in Michigan and Brad was still living in Columbus, we were in close enough proximity that we could count on seeing each other after a couple of years. But I live in New York City now. I was living in upstate New York, so that's been kind of on the back burner. But initially, I mean, the genesis of that is Brad and I did a live collaboration at one of the Summer Scum Fests in Buffalo, just as Breaking the Will and Brad Griggs. It was really fun. I mean, at that point, I toured with Brad Griggs a couple of times already. I was friends with Brad. I like Brad's noise. So we're like, well, maybe we should just formalize this as a collaboration. And so that was the genesis of it. So the first tape was on New Forces. And I think perhaps in contrast to Heat Signature now, which is more well-established, I mean, every Action Discipline recording is different. It's like a mix of live collabs, mail order stuff. It was kind of fly by night because we were always living in different places. And so each recording is probably a little bit different in how it came together.
But a lot of them come from like live sessions.
We would do live recording sessions, and then there's also a fair bit of mail collabing going back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When it came to live sessions, was there like a stereo recording of everything going on to the mixer, or was there any multi-tracking or any editing post-production work that was happening, or was it kind of like taking a chunk of a session and having that be the material?
I mean, for most of them, there wouldn't be multi-tracking. It would be taking a studio session and then chopping it up, finding the good bits, layering them together.
But layering them.
Yeah, there would be some layering. Yeah.
Okay.
So it would be a mix of live and sort of mixing, mastering, tweaking things, but mostly live sessions. When we were doing mail collab stuff, that would involve a little bit more tinkering to get things set up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Luke, can you tell me a bit about Heat Signature and how those recordings come about? You guys have been pretty active in the past few years.
Yeah.
And it seems to be something you guys have been, steadily working on. So how does that usually that come about?
Well, whenever we haven't done a live set in some time, I guess it's been probably about a year and a half, but we would record all of our live sets, and oftentimes those would end up in releases, using those as like source or parts of releases. But most of the time, Brad will just come over to my house and record a bunch of noise in my basement. And that turns out to be Heat Signature a lot of the time. I mean, it's
okay.
We record hours of material, and it seems like a lot of time we'll have recording sessions that will be like maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half or 2 hours of material. And we always joke around because it seems like we get about 10 minutes out of an hour and a half of material a lot of the times that we use for releases.
Really?
We usually just edit the shit out of our recordings, I guess, a lot, and then that's all those concentrated bits become like the releases. So yeah.
Okay. And with that,
are you still editing heavily on tape, Luke, just out of curiosity?
No.
Or are you more on computers?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think Brad does the same too for the most part, but I do all my editing on the computer now, so everything is still recorded to tape, but then all the actual editing is done on a computer. So the kind of part of the mastering process for Heat Signature though is like we run the recordings through what I call the mulcher, which is just a tape deck basically, where we have the recordings and then kind of record them onto a tape deck and then rip that recording onto the computer and then record that back to a tape deck and kind of do that back and forth to get like this sort of like rough fidelity that we like to get on the recordings.
So that's something really specific about Heat Signature, is that really, really, really like saturated, blown out sound. It's almost like the Mother Savage sound, but like perfected. It's sort of like the Mother Savage sound, but still done by someone with like audio engineering skills or something like that. Like it's like on steroids or something like that. So is that something you're responsible for, Luke?
I mean,
that kind of finishing, mastering sound that these recordings have?
It's both of us really, because like sometimes, I don't know, there's a lot of like passing back and forth between Brad and I with the recording. So like I'll edit a session and then I'll send it to him to review. A lot of times he'll make edits, and then sort of send me back his version of it. But it sounds different than the version that I had sent him originally, because the tape deck he's using to record onto has a different fidelity. So I think it's like a lot of time it's a combination of the two, but ultimately we do try to like, get all the tracks sort of like sounding the same for a release. Like especially the last two CDs, I feel like we really made an attempt to like master the tracks so that they all had like a continuous flow and fidelity.
Right.
I feel like a lot of times the very last steps are the mulching that I'm doing with my tape deck, and
sure.
So
And Luke, you have a background or some sort of training, I believe you told me once, in audio engineering or audio production. Is that true?
Yeah, I went to college for like audio production, but the focus was like on film and TV. So like post production stuff, but my main interest was like on set recording. Um, so, and
Okay.
to be honest, I don't know how much of that is translated into what I'm doing with noise.
Okay.
It seemed very like a whirlwind experience to me in college, like learning that stuff, and it's been such a long time. And I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
everything all the equipment and software I was using in college is like extremely outdated right now. So it maybe helped or contributed a little bit, but I can't really say how much otherwise.
This episode of White Centipede Noise Podcast is brought to you by Flag Day Recordings. Established in 2017, Flag Day Recordings is a tape and CD label based out of Pennsylvania, focused on promoting harsh noise, avant-garde, musique concrète, electroacoustic, and ambient styles. Recent CDs include Mariam Sirvan, Peter J. Woods, and Tourette. flagdayrecordings.bigcartel.com. Stefan and Luke, you guys are both obviously like established solo artists releasing pretty regularly. Luke, you not as much these days with Being, but I kind of feel like somehow, nonetheless, that Brad is like the secret ingredient to these projects.
Oh.
I like to think of it that way, at least. Is that true? What does Brad bring to both of these projects? Can you guys tell me about that?
I mean, he has an unmatched live energy, and I mean, like, he's a pleasure to play live with. He elevates everyone he plays live with. I'm sure Luke agrees. I feel like I can plug in a bunch of gear next to Brad and just pretend to play, and it would still sound fucking awesome. And so I think a lot of with Action Discipline is trying to like take Brad's live genius and get it on tape.
Sure.
That's kind of how I thought about it.
Yeah. For those that don't know Brad personally, he's kind of an obsessive person in general. But like, especially with noise, it's obvious. Like, he is a noise ultra fan. I mean, I think there are different levels of people who have an interest in noise, but like, I just think that fandom kind of comes out in what he does with his own noise. So, attention to like sonic detail is apparent, I think.
I wanted to ask you, Brad, too, because I know I've heard that too, that you're really a deep fan of the deep stuff. And I'm going to ask you guys later, like, I'm going to ask for your top 5 noise releases of all time, but I specifically want to ask you, Brad, what are some releases that have really, really influenced your sound? Like that you use as kind of, I mean, maybe you don't, I don't want to assume that you use other noise as reference, but can you give me a few like releases that are really like your deep top picks for quality that kind of inspire you?
Yeah, I guess like as I think you mentioned earlier, like with the Heat Signature recordings, like I'm really into the like Mother Savage sound, where like maybe that doesn't mean something to everybody, but those who know what that means. Like those releases had a very distinct sound where it's like really blown out and muddy, and I don't know, just like really gets into your ear like that. And so yeah, basically all the releases on that label, at least that I've heard, I think have been really influential to me, but especially the Texas Chainsaw Dope Fiend. I think that recording is just the best, which is like a edited collection of some of Gildan's stuff that one or both of the members of Macronympha edited together. And it's just so like unhinged, where it can like move from like dense, like muddy, like wall of sounds, and then like stop to like what's obviously like a room recording of like some guy like beating up some sheet metal and screaming. I just really like that dynamic that you hear in that release, and then also in Macronympha. where it's kind of like just the most primitive, like sort of like bonehead noise that's then taken and then made into like perfectly edited and mastered like fine art, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And then been listening to like Dog Liver Oil. You ever hear them? Yeah, and the Prick Decay Mud Sounds for Car Stereos. Yeah, just like that totally blown out tape saturation sound and from Unhinged Minds. That's what I like.
Have you had a chance to connect or talk with any of the artists that were, you know, any of the artists from that time, or any of the artists that highly inspire you from that time? Like, are you in touch with Romer or Stella or any of those guys?
Yeah, I think the only person I've really ever been in touch with is Roger Stella. You know, I bought tapes from him for years, and then got to play shows with him, and yeah, which are wild times, but I don't know if I should say here, but he's a wild guy. And yeah, it was really, I got to like pick his brain a little bit about the old days, and learned a little bit about how he approached noise. And yeah, I think that was pretty influential to me.
Was that a while ago, or was that more recently?
That was a while ago. Yeah. Luke and I saw Roger for the first time at the same time. It was a show in Oberlin, Ohio. And do you remember when that was, Luke? It was a very long time ago.
Oh, was it like 2013 or so, maybe?
Yeah, or maybe even sooner than that, but maybe early 2010s. Yeah. But I think I had been buying tapes from him since he first started like reissuing that stuff, which was probably in 2008, maybe.
This episode of White Centipede Noise Podcast is brought to you by Scream and Writhe Distro and Absurd Exposition Label, Canadian-based source for experimental electronics, harsh noise, power electronics, etc. Over 1,000 items in stock on all formats. Media mail shipping to the USA and affordable international shipping. Available Friday, November 5th. Normal Rituals, Another Center Tape, and Coastal Flood, Other Frontiers, triple 3-inch CDR compilation of cult Canadian noise. Forthcoming in 2022, Merzbow, Aqua Necromancer Expanded Double LP, reissue of the essential Psych Noise mantra from 1998, plus releases from Alex York, Hermit, Neural, Mott, The Nausea, The Rita, Violent Shogun, Wince, and more. Visit screamandwrithe.com or absurdexposition.bandcamp.com. Do you guys prefer to perform as in collaborations rather than solo? I'll ask you, Luke. Luke, do you prefer to perform in a group rather than solo?
Currently, absolutely. Yeah, I don't really have much interest in doing solo performances or recording right now. I'm not really sure why. It's just something that I've been experiencing the past year or so. I just find it a lot more fulfilling to work with somebody else. Yeah.
Do you guys ever get sick of noise?
I do.
I
do.
You do, Luke?
I mean, maybe not sick, but my interests kind of ebb and flow a little bit. So I certainly have always liked it. But definitely like running the record store has changed my taste in music pretty dramatically. And I've kind of just become open to more stuff than I ever have been before, just because I'm surrounded by it all the time. And I find it pretty liberating personally to explore like so many different types of music. It brings me a lot of joy. So with that, like, I feel like, you know, my interests kind of focus on other areas more than noise sometimes. And
what do you guys say about criticisms that noise in 2021 is overproduced?
I don't know if I've heard that one. What do you mean by overproduced?
I don't really know, but I've heard a couple of people. I mean, okay, on the one hand, the noise scene is so small, so anytime anyone says anything if two people say it, it seems like it's like a new wave, but that's not necessarily the case. But I've heard I've seen a couple of people drop this this general criticism, not necessarily aimed at anything, but that noise is becoming too overproduced. Does that strike a bell? Does that resonate with you guys at all? Do you perceive that at all?
No.
Stefan?
I mean, anytime anyone says noise is blank, there's a billion things that say noise isn't blank, noise is blank, blank. I mean, it's so deep and diverse. I think to sort of say there's one trend eclipsing everything else is always preposterous.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if like by overproduced, like people are referring to things that are like recorded well, like not on crusty old tape players, or having the tapes duplicated by somebody else, like some factory or whatever, and printed on nice paper, expensive LP reissues, things like that. I guess there is more of that now than there used to be, and so I guess that's a change, but I guess it's a matter of taste whether or not you think that's overproduced or just produced, Right. I think there's room for a variety of different things going on.
I mean, noticing label trends, I do think there's fewer and fewer do-it-yourself tape labels where every part of the process is in-house. Like when I started New Forces, the overwhelming assumption was you were dubbing the tapes at home, printing them yourself, folding them and inserting them. And I think more and more people are getting pro-dub tapes. So, I hope the genre doesn't lose the intensely DIY aspect of running a noise label. And I don't think it probably will, but maybe that is a little bit of a trend that there's more professionally manufactured tapes than there used to be.
How do you guys feel about professionally dubbed tapes?
I don't think they sound as good for noise, frankly. I think those companies are scared to blow it out in a way that, if I do something at home, is actually enhancing the sound, not ruining it
right.
by pushing it into the red.
I think it's an issue with cassettes because I don't understand the point of a cassette if you're doing it through a professional company and shrink wrapping it in 2021. And I think that the sound quality is almost always weaker than if you know how to dub at home and you can do it right. You can get way, way better sounding tapes than a professionally duplicated tape for noise music, at least. And I think that's being lost. And so you get kind of slick looking tapes that sound really small, which I think is a strange trend. And no one seems to really prioritize that, or not many people prioritize that.
I mean, that's, I guess, the aspect that noise is overproduced in 2021. With the actual physical production of releases. Yeah, I could see that point being made, but sonically, that seems like a strange thing to say to me. Like, how is it more sonically overproduced in 2021 than it was in 2000 when
right.
people were...
I think that's the criticism. I don't think the criticism is aimed at manufacturing. I think it's aimed at the recording, the editing techniques, the mixing techniques, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys pretty adept with mixing in a computer? Like, do you
that's the irony of this complaint, is I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm recording in my bedroom. I'm not going to studios to record my noise.
Because you were one of the ones accused of being overproduced, right, Stefan?
There was one internet comment that compared me to Jackson Pratt, Jason Krumer, and all of Japanese noise, which is frankly pretty good company to be in. But yeah, I mean, my recording process is remarkably primitive. I mean, I think the complaint was more not studio. I think the complaint is noise that isn't sort of single-mindedly pummeling, which I love that. If that's what someone likes, that's fine. But I also don't think that even comes close to capturing the breadth of the genre. So.
I think too, over the years, there's just sort of knowledge that's passed down. There's just more and more noise out there that you can listen to and sort of pick up on techniques, and you can talk to other people and ask how they're doing things. And then, I don't know, it's probably a lot easier to make well edited cut up noise now than it was back in the day when like nobody really knew what they were doing. They were just pressing pause on a tape player, maybe.
Sure. I mean, the ease of the technology to access is, I mean, for cutout noise, for example, is much greater than.
Yeah, I mean, I played a fest with Sickness, Chris Goudreau, a couple weekends ago, and we were driving back and forth from New York City both days, and so talking a lot. And Chris was talking about how he was talking about the advances in recording technology and editing and even gear that enable that kind of cut up sound that he's one of the pioneers from. And he was talking about how like some of the CDs he did in the 90s, the incredible work and things he had to actually come up with to realize that sound. Now you can buy a Trog joystick or just do it in Audacity and get that same effect. And so, I mean, obviously advances or innovations in gear and editing have certainly enabled new things.
Sure. But you guys aren't like heavily deep in multi-track editing and mixing in DAWs, or are you?
No, I think we all know like sections and Audacity and delete them, and that's pretty much about it. At least for me.
That's cool. No, because I mean, I feel like the heat signature recordings are so dense and so multi-layered that I sometimes wonder if those guys have to be like still taking the session really just like, you know, multi-tracking and layering it after the fact, because always the rhythm is so, or the flow is so impeccable, and the energy is always increasing and increasing. The timing is so great. But I think that really just speaks to your guys' ability to play live. Like going back to what you guys said about I guess also Brad being a live wizard, but just this, I've seen that in all of you guys play. I mean, I've never seen Brad play live, but Luke, I've seen that in your live sets way back, that just this great skill for live playing of noise. And do you find playing live noise is important?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if only for like it makes making a quality recording easier.
Sure.
You know, I would say just like, because although I kind of like dumb down what Brad and I do as far as recording, but I mean, we certainly make our best attempt to like make the best noise that we can while we're recording, even if it's going to be a really long session. Yeah, so like playing live is definitely important, or playing live well is definitely important to the recording process. I mean, because we want to perform live hopefully as well or close to what we can do on recording too. So that's like something that we try to keep in mind is, although the recordings might not be exactly the same as live, we try to do something that we can perform both live and on recording that's kind of similar, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in relation to what you're saying, Oscar, I think, I think it's particularly with noise, when you start talking about good versus bad, you get into sketchy territory very quickly because it's all so radically subjective. But I also think, listening to Luke talk about heat signature, it's crystal clear when you get a heat signature recording that like a lot of time and effort and thought went into that. And it's not just kind of, like Luke said, he doesn't want to dumb it down, right? I mean, there's a lot of effort and care that went into that. And so I think some of the complaints maybe you read or people have, it's like, could sort of sarcastically be rendered as, why listen to something good that's going to challenge you when there's so much just like garbage stuff uploaded to Bandcamp that's like safe and, T signature is intimidating probably. Mm-hmm. And it should be because so much goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Earlier you were saying like, Oscar, about you're asking about the relationship between like live noise and like the recorded stuff. And it seemed like you were suggesting that there was like a live element like into the recorded output, or like that the recorded stuff sounds live. So like For me, it's almost like the reverse. Like when I play live, and then when we practice, rehearse together, I actually like try to play as if what's going to come out is like a really well edited tape. So like I'll like let things go for a while and then like switch channels like abruptly, and make sure to like play back things on tape so that like what comes out of the amps or what gets fed into the 4-track or whatever is a blown out tape sound. And yeah, so that's how it is for me. Maybe that's why my live shows are evidently so unique. But
do you do a lot of pre-planning when you play live?
Sort of.
And it's set?
Yeah, like I probably I mean, I make a point to like carefully select pre-recorded noise and like figure out exactly how I want it to sound by blowing it out, usually through multiple EQs. And then the live element is usually the same, like a contact mic or a vocal mic. But I don't have like a trajectory that I plan to go on. I just like pick the elements that I want to have, and then I just like live mix them, both pre-recorded stuff and live microphones.
I mean, if I can kind of analyze my friend, right, I think part of the live legend of Brad Griggs is that all three of us are pretty quiet, relaxed guys, but Brad arguably is the quiet and the most relaxed. And so live Brad Griggs is kind of like seeing the dog come off the leash. Like there's an energy Brad has playing live that if you know Brad and haven't seen him play live is kind of shocking and intense at first, because Brad lets loose live in this way that I think is, you know, somewhat unique to noise performance.
For those that don't know, Brad's in a band, a noisecore band called Penis Geyser.
Yes, which I also wanted to ask about.
And I just had to remark on kind of what Stefan said about Brad when he played live. I can't remember what particular time it was, but it was one of the first times I saw Penis Geyser play live. And Brad is the vocalist and plays guitar, and there's a drummer in the band too. But I remember being like startled by what I saw, just because it was like a part of Brad that I've never seen before. And it was like slightly like, unsettling and scary to me, because it was just like a facet that only came out when Penis Geyser played. Can
you guys describe what that's like, what that looks like?
It's hard to describe Penis Geyser because they're like noisecore in a very broad sense of the term. Everything about it is like punishing and violent and extreme. Not necessarily, I mean, but like in weird ways. So they'll like stop and refuse to play. Michael plays with his drum set and tweaks it and resets it endlessly. Needed like the whole thing is like this sort of like full body experience of punishment, and then it erupts periodically with Brad, you know, yelling and hitting his guitar and the thrashing of the drums. It's hard to describe, but they're definitely peak noisecore.
Yeah, it's unpredictable and chaotic. I think it feels dangerous to me. I think it kind of embodies like one of the true like spirits of noise, where it feels like kind of dangerous and unpredictable.
Does that same kind of energy come through when he plays noise, so to speak? Like strict noise, like not Penis Geyser, but when he plays solo or in one of your collaborations?
I think it can.
I think it does. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's what's great about Heathnature is that there's a great contrast there, because Luke is sort of famously one of the most zen live performers. I mean, Luke is quiet, barely moves, and sort of is just carefully tweaking and massaging the sound. And meanwhile, Brad is sort of thrashing all over the place right next to him. And so live, there's a great visual and performative contrast there.
Brad, is that something you consciously cultivate, or is that something that just comes out?
Just something that comes out. Yeah, when the amps are like maxed out and like everything's pushed to the red, it's hard not to cut loose. Yeah, I think with Penis Geyser too, I think a lot of the chaos really comes from Michael, my bandmate. He's just like very unique drumming style, and I get a lot of the things that were just said about me could be said about him, and probably more true of him, where he's like very quiet and reserved. But then as soon as he gets behind the drum set, he just like changes into a different person and becomes unleashed. So maybe that's why Penis Geyser works so well, because there's two people like that unleashing at the same time.
Do you play often live these days, Brad? I mean, of course, no one's played often in the last couple of years, but like, are you working on noise quite regularly outside of Penis Geyser? I'm talking about like your solo stuff, or like are you rehearsing or playing live fairly regularly these days as Brad Griggs?
Yeah, not too regularly. Usually when I get an itch to play noise, I'll just contact Luke and then we'll get together and do like a heat signature session. I do some things by myself, but I live in an apartment and it's just like way more fun to play loudly in somebody's basement.
Have either of you played solo since that New York show with Form Hunter a couple years ago?
I haven't.
I don't think so. Mm-mm. Yeah.
Stefan, is there any? You're in a collaboration group called Form Hunter with Weston Cherokes. Is there any fundamental difference to how Form Hunter approaches sound than Action Discipline?
Yeah, pretty different. I mean, and I guess I'm the consistent part, but Brad and Weston are very different in their approach to how they make noise and their approach to sound. I mean, so Brad, as you can tell from what he said, is very much influenced by stuff like Macronympha, David Gilden. Weston is more of a cassette tape guy. So Weston has committed himself to understanding and getting sound out of a variety of forms of tape manipulation. And so Form Hunter is more like attention, because what I do with Form Hunter is closer to what Brad does. And so Form Hunter is this kind of tension where I'm pulling us in this sort of ignorant, louder direction, and Weston's trying to introduce grimier, tapier elements. I've certainly corrupted Weston over the duration of this project into more bombastic and ignorant realms of blasting harsh noise, which I'm happy for. But I think a key ingredient there is, Weston doing really interesting things with tape and atmosphere and reverb that are above my pay grade. And so we got a CD that's going to be out on Tronics and Helicopter probably in the next few weeks. And I think you can hear that. I mean, this one, it's really pushed loud and hard and harsh, but there's still, you can hear those bits of pieces where Weston's introducing more sophisticated tape elements to mix things up.
Phil actually just told me also that he is, he sends his best to you all and mentioned that he's also hopefully waiting on a being master for Tronics. Is that true?
Yeah, he did ask me. Sadly, I haven't really done much for that. It's a very intimidating offer, and I'm kind of like freaked myself out about it a little bit. So, but yeah, he's assured me that it's not a rush really. So hopefully someday I'll get a master to him.
What's the status of being in your mind?
I don't think it's not over. I don't want to try to, declare it being over or anything. I'm just kind of stepping back from it a little bit. I think in a lot of ways, I felt like I ran out of ideas for what to do with the project. And one thing I've always tried to do is constantly progress in some way. Like, I feel like there's been different stages of the project where I've maybe focused on different methods of making noise and different sound palettes. And so that's one thing I've always tried to do is keep things changing and progressing somehow in some way. And I just haven't really found out what I'm going to do next with it. Maybe I just for whatever reason I just kind of lost inspiration to do noise by myself, and that was primarily doing being stuff. So I just need to find out what's next, I guess, or whatever is going to excite me again to do it.
I'm sure running the record shop is a huge, just time obstacle.
Yeah.
With everything you might want to be doing creatively. I can imagine that's even if you were feeling motivated, it would be hard to to find the time because you're really busy with the store.
Yeah, a lot of time is occupied with that, and just a lot of my mental energy too goes into that. So even when I'm not at the store working, that's what I'm pretty much always thinking about.
Right.
But it's gotten better. I have like a little bit more free time now that I have employees, so that's good. But yeah, I just feel like a lot of times I'm stretched pretty thin. It's like I kind of commit to a lot of things maybe I shouldn't commit to, and it's hard to make time and space for everything else. So, but I'm at least happy that Heat Signature is still very active, and that's inspiring to me. It's probably like honestly out of all the noise things I've ever done, it's like the most like personally gratifying to me, and it's something I feel like I could stand behind the most out of anything I've ever done before. So I guess that's a plus, even though I'm not active solo wise anymore.
This episode of White Centipede Noise Podcast is brought to you by New Forces. Coming soon on New Forces, the debut full-length CD from Mass Marriage, the best-kept secret in heavy electronics. A CD of Evil Moisture's classic album GAC, remastered from the original source tape. New cassettes by Cost, Robert Fuchs, and Mott, each offering a unique approach to harsh noise. Visit the New Forces store for older releases and distro titles, including Richard Ramirez, CCCC, Kufar, Aaron Dilloway, Jeff German, Altar of Flies, KJOSTAD, Sissy Spacek, Killer Bug, and much more. Tell me about Amplified Humans Festival. Is that a one-time thing, or is that... sorry, did you do more than one, or was it just the one so far? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you guys anticipate doing again in the future? Did you sorry, I have to check for myself. You guys worked on that together, didn't you?
Stefan and I did, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, me and Luke. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so Luke started his record store pretty soon after that, and so Luke has been busy.
Yeah.
I don't think we've, so we haven't talked about it, but I think I don't want to speak for Luke. I think we'd be open to doing something like that again. But
yeah, I think we just,
I've been moving around. We've been busy.
Yeah. And we never wanted to make the commitment to do the annual fest thing that a lot of people have done, I think. I personally can't imagine doing that a noise festival of that gravity every year, just with the amount of like work that went into it. And I think we did it at a time before things really exploded with like noise and social media. So maybe in some ways we had to work harder for the promotional work that we did for the fest. That just feels different to me back then. I think if we had done the fest,
I feel like you guys did it at a moment when, I haven't really pinned down exactly when this was, but I think we can all agree that like early 2010s, or I don't know, like 2012, 2013 was kind of a low point for noise. Like people, I don't know if those are the exact years, but a lot of people moved to other interests. The fanaticism was really reduced to really the core fanatics. And I feel like that's kind of when that festival took place, in that kind of that lull, which I feel like if that happened today, the last couple of years have been pretty crazy. I think that if that happened today with the lineup you had then, you guys would have to move to like a bigger venue. Like it wouldn't have, like it would be.
Part of what was interesting about Amplified Humans was the decision and insistence to do it in Dayton, Ohio, right? I mean, Dayton, Ohio is a cool city, but it's not the cultural center that somewhere like New York or LA or Chicago is. Right. And part of that was because Luke and I are both a product of, smaller, humbler, harder working Midwest noise scenes that produced all this really cool stuff in the 2000s, and wanted to sort of honor that a little bit rather than doing the sort of inevitable New York City fest or Los Angeles fest where there'd be a bigger pool of casual attendees. But at Dayton, unless people lived there, they had to make a conscious decision to drive 3-4 hours to go see that fest.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I think we can both say that there is probably very few people locally that came to that festival. a handful of people maybe. Most people were coming from out of state. And so in that sense, it was a festival that you had to really want to be there to attend. So that was special, just seeing people come from afar for it. And yeah.
And how do you guys feel about it after the fact? Like, how did you feel about it after the fact then, and how do you feel about it now, like its success?
I feel incredible about it still. I think we pulled off something really amazing that's going to be talked about and remembered for a long time, hopefully, and still hear people talk about it, which is really cool. So I'm very proud of what we did.
And it was well documented on video too, right?
Yeah.
Right. Jay Linsky did an incredible job filming with multiple cameras every set. So that DVD is out there, which is a nice document for people to want to see. I think it's also been uploaded to YouTube at this point. So
is it still in print? Is it still available?
I'm sold out.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I
you
don't
guys
have
any
any more
left.
copies either. So it's sold out, but we did 300 copies, so there was plenty to go around. If you want to get it, it wouldn't be that hard to find a copy, I don't think.
I feel like that's worth like uploading to download somewhere, like as an archive thing. I mean, maybe not.
It's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah.
Like, or even like a YouTube or Vimeo or something something like Vimeo, I think is a bit higher quality, so that it's there. I think that's really, because also you have always the issue with DVDs of the regional codes.
Yeah.
I can imagine that a lot of people outside of the US or, in Europe or Asia did not manage to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty self-critical, but I think with that fest, at the very least, we can say we gave people in the U.S. a chance to see Killer Bug, and not just like see Killer Bug, but see Kazumoto Endo do a set that more than went beyond the incredible high expectations everyone already had for a Killer Bug set. So that was definitely a top 5 music moment for myself, seeing Endo finish off that fest in rare form.
Yeah. I loved also the pictures of you, Luke, online after the fact at the airport with Endo crying. Just like, I love the fact that you got a big heart and you don't mind showing it. Cause like just this, what you wrote, I don't know what you wrote, but just like, just how overwhelmed with emotion you were from the festival, and the experience was so, it was really touching and really motivating to see and really beautiful. Again, also, I think at a time where it felt like a lot of people were over noise. Like, it wasn't like a moment where noise was really, really popping. So it was like it was like this moment of seeing these people, the distillation of these really true fans and true fanatics. That was so cool, and I wish I could have been there.
Thanks. I would have hugged you for sure. Yeah, that was an incredible moment afterwards. I mean, I was certainly ecstatic, and I think it was kind of like everything was just erupting. Like all my stress and anxiety had finally like been released, and I just saw like one of my personal like favorites and a master of noise play like a perfect set and in my hometown, and it was just like kind of in disbelief that it happened.
Yeah, both Endo and Kazuma Kubota were very gracious and lovely to be around that weekend. I mean, it's probably a kind of overwhelming thing to come from Japan to the United States to play in Dayton, Ohio, right? It's not like going to New York City. It's not the kind of like tourist experience they maybe expected, but I think they had a good time, and their performances were, I mean, it's a gamble, right? When you spend thousands of dollars on one or two artists, and to have them more than affirm the investment of time and money and energy was pretty cool.
That's awesome. What are a few impressions of the noise scene right now in 2021? I mean, that's very vague, but I want to hear. This is your chance to tell me some things. What do you think? What are you excited about right now? What's good that's going on, and what are you not impressed with, or what's bothering you about the noise scene right now?
I feel like it's hard for me to answer this without doing some sort of crass, label centric, like dollars and cents kind of answer. But running a label, I mean, we talked about that kind of lull that we experienced after the No Fun Fest era, 2012, 2013. We are full. I mean, enthusiasm seems very, very high. Stuff sells. People are very excited to get it. I think particularly in the past year in the United States, people had a little extra money in their pocket because of some nice government assistance. And so in particular, people were at home under the pandemic buying a lot of noise. So I noticed that. But besides the sort of money aspect, I think there is a lot of interest, and that's very healthy and very cool.
Yeah, one recent thing that I've kind of picked up on and like a lot is this kind of like sort of new school of like weird, harsh noise in the US in particular, like the I Am Elegant label, all of those projects. The newer label, Robert Fuchs, I think the project name's changed from tape to tape, but the last one was like Dalias. And we put like Worth into that camp, and then Presage too, where it's like, it's all, at least for the most part, harsh noise, but it's not shaker box DoD pedal style. It's like usually using...
There's a definitely bizarre, twisted, like...
Stuart Skinner, all his stuff, that's like
Right.
ground zero for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and maybe that's, I don't know exactly what that is, but that's something that's been exciting me, that sound. Maybe it's sort of stepping back from how everything has gotten really specialized and subgenre to death, maybe, is that you have those groups doing interesting things that are, it's kind of unpredictable and strange. And that's really inspiring and exciting. There's another project called Slacking that's been pretty cool and interesting to me. And like Dean, who's the guy that runs a Robert Fuchs label that releases stuff under different names, this guy Jim, who does the Slacking project, he was just a Discogs customer of mine and asked me to, if he could send me something, and it was great. And it was cool to have that kind of connection with somebody where, like I was just solicited by these guys and they asked if they could share something with me. And in this day and age where it's really easy to do that by just sending somebody a link, getting a tape in the mail from a total stranger asking you to check out their stuff and it turning out to be excellent is like a really cool thing and special thing to happen, I think. That probably is a rarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most solicitations are totally thoughtless, and it's crystal clear that despite their claim to being huge fans, like they're sending this Bandcamp link to the 30 labels they just Google, and so getting something more personal means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can use this platform like as a chance to like throw out a few messages there that I think we should get to everyone. I want to say this to people who are listening. If you're an artist and you, if you're a newer artist, or in general, any artist, and you want to approach a label maybe about getting your work released or even listened to, the best way is definitely a personalized email and a physical format. It's really obvious when you copy paste something, if you've never ordered from the label, and you copy paste a generic invitation to release your stuff and you have pre-finished artwork, it's not gonna get you far. Some people might pick it up, but I highly recommend to all artists out there, put some thought into it. Send this person, if you really want to be on their label, send them personally a thought out email. That makes a huge difference. Even in getting someone to listen to the music. If someone writes me an email and says, I like your label and, I blah, 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 and I can tell that this person is sincere, I'll listen to it. And I've released stuff on that simply, like people I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I've never released anything by anyone sending me a a generic, will you release my demo thing? And I never ever listened to it, and no one listens to it. So just please.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people get the perception that there's like gatekeeping going on or something, but when people ask like, how do I get people to pay attention or blah, 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 do it yourself. I mean, it's everyone here, or at least the three of us that ran long-term labels, like the start of that label is a mechanism to release our own music, right? You go through some years where nobody cares, but if there's sustained and consistent quality, eventually people are going to start paying attention. And I just don't think that
exactly
a digital link is going to establish the kind of interest that just doing it yourself and creating something that you've created and then making that really good and interesting to people is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's gatekeeping. But it's about sincerity, and it's about sincerity first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Even if your noise is bad, it's about sincerity. I'll definitely check it out if I feel like you're sincere.
Mm-hmm.
And things don't happen overnight. You have to go through a phase of working on it and showing it to people and doing it yourself until someone might care. So I don't know.
Yeah, making sincere connections with people and real, just real connections. We live in a world where everything seems more artificial every day, and getting a personalized message from somebody, or getting a tape in the mail from somebody you don't know, and yeah, that's huge, I think.
Definitely huge, and it's fun. It's fucking awesome actually when you get a package from someone that you weren't expecting, with some material that someone thought you might enjoy, and maybe a note. That's fucking huge.
Mm-hmm.
So Stefan, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, so physical space and physical location seems so important, and is something I get to enjoy right now. So Luke runs his record store, and Skeleton Dust is also a place, at least pre-pandemic, where touring bands would play. So I played Skeleton Dust on tour. A lot of people that probably watch this podcast have played Skeleton Dust on tour. I live in New York City, and so the kind of hub here is the Thousands of Dead Gods noise store, which as a physical location becomes this thing that serves multiple purposes, right? It's a place where you can go and buy noise, which is this incredibly unique thing. It's a place where people congregate before shows. It's a place where people go after shows. It becomes this kind of hub that generates activity. And the reality of all these different noise scenes is it's usually like 1, 2, 3 people doing most of the heavy lifting. And when those people stop, often those little regional scenes experience lulls. And so, you need to appreciate when you've got a few people doing all that work to make stuff happen, because we need the live show, and we haven't had the live show. It started to come back a little bit. I've been very fortunate to play live a couple times in the past month, and damn did I miss it. And I'm glad it's back, and I'm fortunate to live where I do, where I get to see live noise and play live noise pretty regularly.
It's also great that New York City is really pretty active these days. I remember back some years ago when you and I toured.
That was bleak.
Like 2008 or whatever, 2010.
Yeah.
We toured with you, me, Baculum, and Paranoid Time, and New York City was always the worst place to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there was nothing going on. There was no space.
Me, Luke, and Brad were on tour, I think, in 2003. We were supposed to play in New York City at the Silent Barn, and the person that said they were going to do the show simply didn't do the show. And so Bob Beller had to step in at the last minute and literally unlock the building for us. And we ended up playing in the kitchen of Silent Barn for 2 paying audience members that were just Brad's friends. So New York is not that bleak place it was anymore. Largely thanks to Matt and Justin at Thousands of Dead Gods and a handful of other people.
Yeah.
So,
but that's also the cool thing is that, like you said, it also really only takes there's the negative side when those people drop off, but at the same time, it only takes usually 1 or 2 people to be like, okay, I'm going to be the one that sets up shows then, if no one else will. And then out of that comes a scene. in Minneapolis, there were no noise shows for a while, and this dude Kevin Cosgrove, who wasn't even like a true he wasn't even like a super hardcore noise head, but he was doing experimental stuff. He just asked a bar if they would let us do weekly or monthly like noise shows on a Monday night, and they said yes. And then it became this tradition, this ritual, and a big active live scene grew up out of that. And as soon as that person stops, then it can stop. I mean, but I feel like people shouldn't complain about nothing going on. They should just, I mean, it really can be like one person noise is so small, and one person to just do something.
That's all.
That's true of 99% of the whining you see online when people are complaining about stuff. The invariable answer is, well, you should just do it then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, earlier Stefan mentioned that the Skeleton Dust record store is like a hub for noise, but I just also wanted to point out that Luke has been doing that for a long time, like well before the store opened. Like he had shows at was it like 3 different houses you lived at in Dayton, like Acid Fever House, Battery Cage, and then Skeleton Dust HQ. And man, I'm just so appreciative to like have been around during that time, because it was just such a cool scene to be a part of, where you would just go up to somebody's house and it would be very welcoming, and you knew everybody that was there, and like everybody would have a good time and just like rage in the basement. And Kathleen, Luke's wife, and then girlfriend, she would like make food for us all, and it was like such a great scene to be a part of. And it was like, if it weren't for that one guy and also Kathleen helping out too, who knows what like the Ohio scene would have been like during those years.
Totally.
Thanks.
Yeah, respect, Luke.
I also have another thing on what you said earlier about the tour with Baculum, Being, Wentz, and Paranoid Time. I don't know if you realize this, but I saw you guys at what you probably think is one of the worst shows you've ever played, which is at Cafe Bourbon Street in Columbus. Do you remember being there, Oscar? What I remember most about that show is that it was like apparent to me that Oscar, evidently you played really short sets, I think, because it seemed like they were challenging you to play for at least 5 minutes. Because I think like Paranoid Time was like holding up like a timer on his phone, and like it looked like you wanted to give up, but he would like shove it in your face, and like you like.
I don't know if it was 5 minutes. It was probably 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes was like my. I think 10 minutes was like my goal that I wanted to. I don't think I was playing like that short sets, but yeah, I played short sets, and I usually do play quite short sets.
5 minutes would have been more like Custodian at that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a thing that besides the collaborative projects ties the three of us together is how much touring Brad and Luke and I, and then often Shane Church have done.
Yeah.
In different configurations, both in the Midwest, the East Coast, and the West Coast. Yeah.
And honestly, shortly before we met, I also thought, fuck, maybe I should have asked Shane to come, because I think of you guys as like a superpower, like a super group. There are a lot of different, there are a lot of different projects you guys are working on together, and they're all great, and you guys are all from the same area, and you guys have done so much touring and shows together that I think you guys all kind of have I see you as a kind of as a group, as a kind of a unit in some way.
If I can share a bit of wisdom from a New York City noise friend, right? So the quote is, you've got to play live to make it real. Live, releases, tour. If you don't do all of those, it always evaporates.
Sure.
And so taking the step to play live and tour, I think, is such an integral part of this. And it's been a lot of fun to do that quite a bit with Brad and Luke and also Shane.
Yeah. Who wrote that, by the way?
Scant, Matt Becky. That's a Matt Becky quote.
He is like a fountain of wisdom, isn't he?
He is absolutely a font of wisdom, and particularly noise wisdom. Yeah. He can diagnose. and analyze all the minutia of this thing we obsess over better than just about anybody.
Yeah. What about some things right now that you guys really aren't feeling about the noise scene? Just one each. Don't go too far.
Well, I really appreciate the reissues that have been coming out lately. Like, I buy a lot of them, but sometimes it is like I would really like to hear like some new stuff. Like, the people putting out the reissues. It's just kind of like, well, what have you been up to lately? I would like to hear that.
Right.
As an offender, I agree.
Yeah. I'll reiterate that I like the reissues, but I wish there was a better balance of new stuff to old stuff.
Yeah.
Can I pass to Luke? I got to think on this one.
I had to think too. Really, the only thing that to me that I'm not into too much is just the influx of new releases coming out all the time. I feel like I feel overwhelmed by it, especially as a record store owner. I'm getting solicited like all the time for people to asking me to carry their release, which I'm almost always happy to do. A lot of times it'll just be on a consignment basis because I'm limited financially to what I can spend on new stock. So I'm pretty much always happy to carry anything that anybody wants to send on a consignment basis, but it's just overwhelming. You have to really sift through a lot of stuff that's coming out all the time. And I'm sure there's some really magical noise being put out that I just don't know about because there's just too much out there to kind of go through. And I think maybe I'm familiar with labels that I enjoy and the kind of stuff they're putting out. So that helps to like follow labels that you trust what they're going to release. But I guess like maybe the Bandcamp culture of noise, I don't want to sound elitist when I say that, but I feel like it's, there's just so much out there and it's overwhelming and it kind of kills it for me sometimes. And I wish people would just maybe take more time and put more care into what they release rather than trying to focus on cranking out something every Bandcamp Friday.
Luke said mine. I mean, I was going to say the Bandcamp thing. My preference for the physical thing, right, that's a little bit more subjective. But I also think the increasing ease of the digital tools means that you can kind of just exist in that ecosystem and never push yourself to create physical things in large editions that you're kind of betting on yourself that over time people are going to get interested in.
Yeah.
You can simply just put it on Bandcamp. Your 4 other friends download it, and that just kind of keeps circulating in its own little ecosystem. I think
what you said about large. Sorry, go ahead.
Gambling on yourself to saying, no, you know what, I'm going to make 75, 100 tapes. I may have these for a long time, but if it's good, 3 years down the line, someone might say, hey, this thing came out. I want to actually have it in my hand, and it's not just some URL code that's forgettable.
Exactly, and I think that's a cool thing, important thing you said about larger editions. I think there's some weird like obsession that people have with things being sold out right away.
Right, and you sold out of 20 tapes. Who gives a shit? Like, that's not selling out. You just didn't make enough.
Right, exactly. You didn't make enough, and I think if it's sold out, that means people can't buy it. So I don't see that as a goal. I think people really love to push that, like, oh, why is it still available 1 year later or whatever? It's like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's how it should be, really. I know not everyone can do it that way, and I know there are certain releases and certain reasons, artistically, aesthetically, economically, practically, etc., to keep editions small. But I really think investing in a release, if it's good, it'll be good in 5 years. This episode of White Centipede Noise Podcast is brought to you by Oxen Records, an independent label focused on artists in the field of harsh noise, based in Los Angeles, California. Recent releases include Peter J. Wood's Collages C30, Unsustainable Social Condition, Rapid Polarization 2 C20, Circuit Wound, A Sudden Lapse of Concentration CD, Scathing, A Capital Beneath the Waves CD, and Leah P. Surviving the Familiar CD. www.oxenrecords.bigcartel.com. I want to hear from you guys each your top 5 releases of all time, your top 5 noise releases of all time.
Yeah. I'll go first because I watched your first episode the other day and I anticipated this question. So Texas Chainsaw Dope Fiend by David Gilden. I think that's probably my favorite release of all time. And I got a list of Macronympha release, and that changes depending on my mood, I guess. But it usually goes between Baroque or grind, kind of like the weirder side of Macronympha. Mm-hmm. Where Roger's hand was heavier in the mix, I think. And then, I got to say something Ramirez related, I think. So Black Leather Jesus Torture Machinist. I think that's my favorite BLJ. And then Mon Bruit, Portuguese Man of War. Some people might go with Purgatory. It's definitely the more polished and maybe in many ways more impressive release, but Portuguese Man of War is just constant barrage of sound, nonstop. And I guess that's just more of my style. And then after that, I think it might be Merzbow Venereology. Hard to pick just one, but I think I return to that one the most.
Okay, cool.
I mean, my bullshit cop-out answer is that one of the cool things about noise is the incredible depths to it, which means that since I discovered this in, 2004, 2005, my answer to this has been changing every 6 months. So this is hard to answer. A few things that come off it. Yeah. So a few things that come off the top of the head would be the K2 Sex Encyclopedia, Merzbow, Noise Embryo, Pain Jerk, Action Bruit, Hands 2, Dekesh. And if you have me back on the podcast, I'm probably going to give you a totally different list next time. So,
but that's only 4, isn't it?
That's 4. Let Luke go. I'll try to think of a 5th.
Yeah, there's going to be some duplicates here for sure. But yeah, Gilden, David Gilden, Texas Chainsaw Dope Fiend, and these in no particular order. It's just what I can think off the top of my head. Macronympha, Baroque. I can say that's my favorite Macronympha. Kazumoto Endo, While You Were Out, is definitely one of my favorites of all time. Merzbow, I really like Metal Velodrome a lot. That's probably my current favorite Merzbow. Is that 4?
It's 4.
And I'm just looking at my Macronympha tape ball. So I would have to say Blister Pack Trinny's Wad is probably my 5th choice.
Cool. Stefan, your last one?
It'd be easier if I was at home. I'm in my office surrounded by books and not tapes. I don't know.
Look into your mind.
Maybe something by Crawl Unit or Joe Colley.
Okay.
Maybe the big Joe Colley 3 LP box set that CIP did.
Cool. Okay, cool. Coming soon on White Centipede Noise, Altar of Flies, Otterblick Triple LP, Jason Krumer Ruth CD, Worth Sacred Violence Noise CD, K.M. Tupfer Retrace No Steps CD, Kakerlak The Heat of the Whole Temporary and Successive Stages CD, Upperpot Hot Lava Shampoo CD, The New Boyfriend's 4 CD, as well as tapes from Vincent Dallas, Moosehead, and Wince. And now, before we wrap it up, 3 favorite noise releases of the past year.
Past year, that's a good question. I can help. Discogs can help me here. I can pull up my Discogs.
No. Windows closed. I don't want to see any clicking. I don't want to see any. I want this to come from, because if you have to look on Discogs, then it's not true.
Yeah. All right. The Testicle Hazard disc on Tronics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing that a lot. I'm playing the Sewer Election disc on Usagi quite a bit.
That's amazing. Yeah.
You guys go. I'll circle back.
No.
Oscar, you're a taskmaster. God, this is hard to do not sitting in my house with my records in front of me. The Itzy Ramirez cassette on American Erectors, which is Omar Gonzalez's new label.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to play a show with her like the week that New York City locked down for COVID-19. Never seen her play live, but that tape, I've been playing that tape quite a bit, so that tape sticks out in my head.
Cool. Brad?
Yeah, it's hard to remember like names of like the releases and in some cases the projects, but like just in general, the stuff that's been coming out on the Robert Fuchs label. I think that most recent tape, Dalias, is the project name. That was incredible. And then
Shameless plug, I've got a Robert Fuchs tape coming out probably next month.
you're doing one
And
for
Robert
that
Fuchs.
label, or he's doing one for you?
He's doing a solo tape on the label, and it's called Robert Fuchs, so it's not any of those other projects. Yeah.
And he's apparently sending me stuff for White Centipede Noise very soon, so I hope to be able to check it out and have it in stock quite soon.
Yeah, and whatever comes out on I Am Elegant, I just got the new Star tape, but I haven't listened to it yet. But if it's like any of the other ones, I'm sure it's going to be really good. And then I just got the new Wasteland Jazz Unit CD on Tronics and Helicopter, and Stefan just put out a tape for them too that's in a similar vein. It's just really, that project's been around for longer than I have, I think. And I think it's fair to say that like years ago, they were probably associated with like Michigan noise, like Midwestern noise, that sort of stuff, and not really like capital H in harsh noise. But yeah, it's kind of cool now that they're like getting appreciated by a different sort of audience with releases on Oxen, New Forces, Tronics, and yeah, that new CD is really killer. Like, if anybody's ever seen them live, you know that it's like the most painful noise you've ever experienced.
In a good way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Cool. Luke?
I may not be getting my timeline exactly right. I'm just thinking about kind of recent things, and the last year and a half has been kind of a blur. But just to clarify, are we talking about new releases or are reissues include
New releases.
New
releases.
Okay. The KJOSTAD Red Iron Knife CD was like one of my favorites, and that might be a 2020 release. But I'm gonna throw it.
Yeah, it's 2020.
That's fine. Last 1 year, last 12 months, or 1.5 years, whatever.
Trying to think here. What else have I liked? Certainly, like there was a couple tapes on I Am Elegant that really impacted me a lot, and these also are 2020 releases. But there was a Star tape and another project name that I can't recall, but they came in those big oversized boxes. I know you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Andromeda.
Adorama.
Adorama, yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, but
great stuff.
I think the Adorama tape was like especially impactful to me. And then probably trying to think here, new wise. Probably like a Slacking tape. I don't recall what it was, but it was like some maybe a self-titled tape that was very limited. Something that Jim sent me that it was the first thing I heard from him, and it was just great stuff.
I think another thing I want to mention, even though I already went over my limit of 3, is
I was being merciful, actually.
Yeah,
I would have said 5.
Yeah, Seepage. I really like that project.
Yes,
and all the tapes that have come out.
Yeah,
that shit is heavy.
Yeah,
so good.
like the aesthetics of the project, like the artwork and the track titles, to me are very reminiscent of like mid 2000s, like California harsh noise, like Monorail Trespassing and Gordon Ashworth's label and Callow God. The sound, though, I think I guess there's some similarities, but I think they have their own sound for sure, and the sound is great.
Yeah, Seepage played the first show back in New York City from the pandemic in the alley outside Dead Gods, and it was awesome.
Killer. That's awesome.
Yeah. So Oscar, after cheating, the things I would add would be the Joe Colley trance tapes cassette on No Rent,
That's
the
really good.
the Charmaine Lee LP, and then the Aaron Dillaway and Lucretia Dult LP, which is also very cool.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we're about out of time here. Thank you so much for joining me. It was really nice to see you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Anything else you guys want to add before we wrap it up?
Play live when you can do so safely.
I would just say thanks for starting this podcast. I think it's going to be a great contribution to like the overall noise scene. Like internationally, everybody's going to have access. Well, everybody who can access the internet will have access to this, and it'll be interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah. I would say,
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for doing what you do, Oscar. I mean, because you're really carrying like a American Midwest torch in a different part of the world, which is really cool.
Germany.
Yeah, just making something happen there. And I mean, I feel like what you're doing, you're more active than you've ever been before in my eyes, as far as like with your label and all the different facets of what you're doing, distribution. So thank you for doing that sometimes thankless work of being that.
I hope everyone can appreciate the maniacal thanklessness of running a noise distro, because Luke and Oscar in particular know what that is more than I do.
It's not. For me, it's not thankless at all. To me, it's like, it's great. I love it. So currently available from White Centipede Noise, Aaron Dillaway and Jeff German, Casual Collision CD, co-released with New Forces. Various artists, Lacerations double CD, co-released with Tronics. Sewer Election and Trix Rusit, Killing for Germany, Rugsfett CD. Testicle Hazard, 50/60 LP. Yeah, cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for coming in. Lots of heat signature stuff is hopefully still in print right now, or at least can be found. Action Discipline as well. I would love to see more from you guys coming out in the near future.
Maybe the winds of time will move us closer together someday.
Yeah, it's tough, but we're patient. Things can take a break, and that's cool too. And I'm really looking forward to anything else new from you guys, from Brad Griggs. If you ever get any solo stuff done anytime soon, we're all waiting for it. There's people that you don't even know who are. I mean, I mentioned to someone who's like, I think in Europe, I don't remember who it was, that I was interviewing you guys, and they were like, "Whoa, you got Brad!" Like,
I mean, I know for a fact that Brad technically owes myself, Oscar, and Luke tapes.
Yeah,
everybody
for like a decade or more.
I have to just throw in a piece of trivia though. If you're looking for a solo Brad Griggs effort, you can find one under the moniker Amandul 3. Sorry if I'm giving away a secret, Brad, but that is basically a Brad solo release, isn't it? More or less. I mean, you had source material for other people, but you made it.
Yeah, it's a very short tape. It's a C7, and the A side I edited together, and then the B side is just a straight live collaboration. That's a collaboration between Penis Geyser, Unexamined, and Napalm Death is Dead, another noisecore band, and we toured together, and I recorded all the shows, and then I like played them all back, mixed it together for the A side, and then the B side was just us all playing together in Detroit.
Yeah, it's awesome. Incredible.
Okay, so there's 7 minutes of Brad Griggs material out there that you guys can hear.
Or 3.5. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Enjoy your day, and talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into White Centipede Noise Podcast. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is made possible by viewer and listener support. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider supporting it at patreon.com/whitecentipedeNoise.